Mom, Dad has a new friend, and she's really pretty, my little boy whispered, completely unaware that his innocent words cut through me like a knife. My heart trembled as I drove to the park, expecting to find another woman. Instead, what I saw was something far stranger, a woman I'd never met, a child whose face looked hauntingly familiar, and a truth that still keeps me awake at night. Mom, why does Dad kiss that lady at the park? I froze, the spatula in my hand suspended halfway to the plate. Noah sat across the kitchen island, a chocolate milk mustache on his upper lip, looking at me like he had just asked about the weather. What lady, sweetheart? I asked softly. My tone was calm, but my heartbeat was pounding against my ribs. The pretty one with the sparkly earrings, Ava added, her little legs swinging from her booster seat. She is a little girl who looks just like Noah. Isn't that weird, Mommy? Before we go on, thank you for being here as we uncover this story together. If you believe in standing up against betrayal and injustice, please consider subscribing. It's free and helps us reach more people. Now, let's continue. The spatula slipped from my hand and clattered onto the stovetop. 7 years old and 5 years old, and my children had just told me, as casually as if they were talking about a cartoon, that my husband was living a double life. I turned back toward the stove, gripping the edge of the counter until my knuckles went white. The bacon was burning. I could see the smoke curling upward, smell it filling the air, but I couldn't make myself move. I had spent 10 years managing crises for Boston's most powerful executives and politicians, trained to stay composed even when chaos erupted at 2 in the morning. But this wasn't someone else's scandal. This was mine. Where does Daddy kiss this lady? I asked gently, forcing my voice to sound light and curious, as though it was just part of their day. Noah shrugged, swinging his legs under the counter. At Riverside Park. You know, where Dad takes us every Saturday morning while you're working on your computer stuff. Every Saturday morning. For how long? He doesn't kiss her like he kisses you, Mom, Ava added, reaching for her sippy cup. It's different. Softer. And he smiles at her the way he smiles at us when we do something good. A sharp coldness spread through my chest. I moved the smoking pan off the burner, staring at the ruined bacon while trying to process what my kindergartner had just described with innocent precision. Tell me about the little girl, I said, turning to face them. I kept my tone casual, as if we were talking about playground games instead of the fact that their father had apparently been carrying on an affair in front of them. Her name is Sophie, Ava said with the excitement only a 5-year-old can have. She's 6 and really cool. She can do a backflip off the swings. A real one, Noah added quickly, his eyes bright. And she climbs all the way to the top of the jungle gym. She's brave. And she looks exactly like me. Same hair, same nose. Even Mrs. Chin from Dad's office said so when she saw us there. My breath caught. Mrs. Chin, Callum's assistant, had seen them. That meant this wasn't hidden. It was open enough for people from his office to notice. Does the pretty lady talk to you? I asked, reaching for Ava's toast that had popped up just moments before my life had quietly split in two. My hands trembled, but I forced them steady as I spread butter across the bread. Sometimes, Noah mumbled with his mouth full of cereal. She's nice. She brings snacks like gummy bears and those cookies with frosting. Not the healthy ones you pack, Mom. No offense. None taken, I said quietly, cutting Ava's toast into triangles, needing something normal to do while my children described my husband's other life like it was a bedtime story. Ava kept swinging her legs. Daddy calls her sweetheart sometimes, and he buys her the fancy coffee from the cart. The one with the whipped cream. The fancy coffee. Callum hadn't remembered how I liked mine in years, 2 sugars and a splash of cream. I'd told myself that was just what marriage becomes, familiar, comfortable, predictable. Turns out, he was still romantic, just not with me. How long has Daddy been taking you to see them? I asked, pouring orange juice with a hand that didn't feel like my own. Noah squinted, thinking. I don't know. A long time. Since before Ava's birthday, I think. Ava's birthday had been 4 months ago. 4 months of Saturday morning lies. For months of Callum kissing my forehead before ushering the kids out the door for quality time, while I stayed home catching up on emails. Quality time with another woman. Another child who looked like our son. 10 years of marriage this October. I met Callum at a networking event when I was building my crisis communications firm. He was charming, ambitious, and ready to settle down. We married quickly. Noah was born 2 years later, Ava 3 years after that. I thought our life was solid. Ordinary struggles, money, parenting, routine, but nothing destructive. Then the numbers started lining up in my head the way they did when I handled scandals for clients. Sophie was 6. Ava had just turned 5. Which meant that while I was pregnant, sick, exhausted, and fragile, Callum had already begun building this other life. Or maybe Sophie came later, when I was drowning in postpartum depression, barely sleeping, crying silently in the shower. Those endless nights when Callum claimed to be traveling for business deals in Cambridge or Worcester, returning home smelling of hotel soap and saying he was too tired for conversation or touch. Was he with her those nights? Was she carrying his child while I was struggling to keep myself together with a newborn and a toddler? "Mommy, you're squeezing the juice too hard," Ava said suddenly, pointing at the overflowing cup. I looked down to see orange juice spilling across the counter. Carefully, I set the carton down and wiped the mess away with mechanical precision, each motion deliberate, practiced, because it was the only thing I could control in that moment. "Does Sophie's mommy come to the park too?" I asked, keeping my voice casual as though this were just another harmless topic over breakfast. "That's who Dad talks to," Noah replied, scraping the last bits of cereal from his bowl. "They stand together while we play. Sometimes they sit on the bench and drink coffee. Dad always laughs at her jokes. He laughs different with her, louder than with you, Mom. He laughs different with her." My 7-year-old had noticed that his father was happier with his mistress than with his wife, and I had been completely blind to it. I'd been so focused on other people's chaos, the congressman whose affair with an intern threatened his campaign, the tech CEO caught in an email scandal, the nonprofit director accused of embezzlement. For 10 years, I'd built my reputation as the woman who could contain any disaster, shape any crisis into a controlled story. Yet somehow, I'd missed the Category 5 hurricane forming quietly in my own kitchen. "You should come to the park with us sometime, Mommy," Ava suggested, reaching for her juice. "Then you could meet Sophie. I bet you'd like her. Everyone likes her." "Maybe I will," I said, forcing a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "That sounds nice, sweetheart." After that, I moved through the morning on autopilot. I brushed Ava's tangled blonde hair while she complained that her princess braid was too tight. I packed Noah's lunch, turkey sandwich, apple slices, string cheese, and the carrots he'd inevitably trade to his friend Tyler. I found Ava's overdue library book, signed the field trip form for Noah's class, and loaded backpacks by the door. Every motion was routine, mechanical, practiced. But my mind was racing, assembling scenarios like I would for a client presentation. An affair was one thing. An affair involving a child was another entirely. That wasn't a lapse in judgment or a midlife crisis, it was a second life. A deliberate, organized deception that required planning, money, and time I hadn't realized Callum possessed. Where had the money come from? From our joint account, the one I barely checked because I trusted him to manage finances while I focused on my demanding work? Had he been using our savings to fund another household, another family, while I covered the mortgage and grocery bills? The school bus arrived at exactly 8:15, as it always did. I kissed Noah and Ava goodbye, watched them climb the steps with their oversized backpacks, and waved until the bus disappeared down Commonwealth Avenue. "Good morning," called Mrs. Whitaker from next door, cheerful as ever. "Book club on Thursday, are you still bringing your lemon bars?" "Absolutely." I called back, voice steady and bright. "Rule number 1 in crisis management: never let them see you bleed." Back inside, the silence hit me. I walked through our brownstone like a stranger seeing it for the first time. The living room where we'd argued about whether the sectional was too big. The dining table where we shared Sunday dinners and birthday cakes. The framed photos lining the hall, our wedding day, Noah as a newborn, Ava's first birthday, last Christmas with our matching outfits and practice smiles. Had any of it been real? Or had I been living in a carefully crafted illusion while Callum built his real life somewhere else? My phone buzzed on the counter. Mira, my sister. Her name lit up the screen. Our Tuesday morning check-ins had been her ritual since she finished cancer treatment 3 years ago. I stared at the phone, thumb hovering above answer. If I told her, if I said the words, Callum has another child, I couldn't take them back. She'd drive over instantly, furious on my behalf, wine in one hand and vengeance in the other. But once spoken aloud, the truth would be real. The call went to voicemail. I'd text her later, something about being busy on a client call, handling a PR emergency. It wouldn't be a total lie. My marriage was absolutely a crisis. I opened my laptop on the kitchen table and pulled up Google Maps. Riverside Park. The satellite view showed the playground clearly, swings, jungle gym, walking trails beside the Charles River. A large oak tree shaded the benches where parents gathered on weekends, sipping coffee while their kids ran wild. Parking 2 blocks away, open sight lines, perfect visibility. Saturday was 4 days away. 4 days to plan. 4 days to decide how I wanted this story to unfold, the moment I stopped being the oblivious wife and became something entirely different. I climbed the stairs to our bedroom, the room we'd shared for 10 years. The place where we'd made love, argued about thermostat settings, and whispered about parenting strategies. Opening the closet, I dug through old boxes on the top shelf until I found what I needed. Myra's old Red Sox cap from last summer's barbecue, oversized sunglasses from a vacation I'd never worn because they felt too flashy, and a gray hoodie I'd meant to donate but hadn't. In those clothes, I'd blend in perfectly. Just another tired Boston mom running weekend errands in athleisure. Ordinary. Forgettable. Invisible. Exactly what I needed to be. Because here's what Callum had forgotten about me, if he ever knew at all. My entire career was built on solving impossible problems, on uncovering what others tried to hide, on collecting evidence and timing its release for maximum effect. I knew how to trace lies, build narratives, and shape outcomes. Callum thought he was being clever. He thought those Saturday fitness routines and taking the kids along made his cover believable. He probably told that woman I was too career-obsessed to care, too focused on work to notice. But he'd made one fatal mistake. He had turned our children into his alibis. And children, bless them, always tell the truth. Noah and Ava had unknowingly given me everything, where, when, who she was, even the little girl's name and age. Sophie, 6 years old. And she looked exactly like Noah. My phone buzzed. A client needed an urgent strategy session about a harassment claim that had just gone public. Without missing a beat, I replied professionally, scheduled a 2 o'clock call, and tucked my personal disaster neatly into a box I'd deal with later. That was what I did. I managed crises. I fixed the impossible. I controlled chaos, or, when control wasn't possible, I decided exactly how and when things would explode. Saturday couldn't come soon enough. I needed to see it for myself, document it, and understand the full scope before I decided on my next move. And that decision would be mine, no advice from friends, no interference from Mira, my fierce and protective sister. Whatever came next, I would manage it, orchestrate every consequence with the same precision I brought to my most demanding clients. I stood by the bay windows of our living room, gazing out at our quiet South End street. The historic brownstones, the manicured gardens, picture-perfect Boston. Picture-perfect family. At least, that's what everyone believed. For more days. For more days until I stopped being the wife who didn't know and became the woman Callum should have feared all along. Saturday morning arrived with cruel normalcy. Sunlight spilled across our bedroom, and Callum's alarm chirped at 7:30, just like it did every weekend. He groaned, stretched, and walked to the bathroom as if this were any other morning, as if he wasn't about to take our children to meet his other family. I stayed in bed, pretending to sleep, watching through half-closed eyes as he played his part. The stretching routine he'd started 4 months ago, lunges, arm circles, toe touches, checking his smartwatch as though the numbers mattered. He even hummed softly while brushing his teeth. I had to give him credit. He was convincing. When he came back into the bedroom, he pulled on jeans and the navy Henley I'd given him last Christmas, the one I thought made his eyes look warmer. I kept my breathing steady, face relaxed, the perfect picture of a resting wife, not a woman preparing to follow her husband. Taking the kids to the park, he said quietly, thinking I was asleep, "Let you get some rest." How thoughtful. How considerate. Giving his hard-working wife a peaceful morning while he spent time with his secret family. I waited until I heard him head downstairs. Noah's excited voice echoed through the hallway, followed by Ava's cheerful chatter. The clatter of breakfast, the shuffle of shoes by the door. I went to the window just in time to see Callum usher them into his black BMW. Before they left, he kissed my forehead. I'd come downstairs in my bathrobe, playing the role of the tired wife who needed quiet to work. "Big client presentation Monday," I'd said, waving toward the laptop on the table. "I really need to prepare." The lie rolled easily off my tongue. After 10 years of marriage, we were both fluent in deception. I just hadn't realized it before. "Take your time," Callum said, his hand resting warmly on my shoulder. "We'll probably hit the playground for a couple of hours. Burn off some energy." He smiled, easy, confident, guilt-free. I smiled back. The moment his car disappeared down the street, I was in motion. Jeans I'd laid out the night before. Gray hoodie. Hair pulled into a messy bun under Myra's Red Sox cap. Oversized sunglasses that covered half my face. I looked exactly how I needed to, unremarkable, forgettable, invisible. My hands shook as I grabbed my keys from the hook by the door. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my throat. The rush of blood roared in my ears. This wasn't work, this was personal. This was my life unraveling in real time, and I was about to witness it with my own eyes. The drive to Riverside Park took 20 minutes through light Saturday traffic. I parked 2 blocks away on a quiet residential street, checked my reflection in the rearview mirror, just another Boston mom on an errand run. Nothing suspicious. Nothing memorable. The park was crowded, families with strollers, joggers in sleek athletic gear, dogs tugging at their leashes. The Charles River stretched out beyond the playground, reflecting the pale gray of the October sky. I blended in easily, walking at a steady pace until I found a bench with a clear view of the play area. Close enough to see everything, far enough not to be seen. I pulled out my phone, tilting it as if I were scrolling through social media. Just another distracted parent. Noah and Ava raced toward the swings the second they arrived. Ava's blonde ponytail bounced, Noah's dark curls caught the morning light. Callum followed a few steps behind, hands in his pockets, checking his phone with that restless energy I'd always mistaken for work-related stress. He was waiting for her. I knew it before she appeared, but knowing didn't prepare me for the moment itself. She came from the walking path that curved along the river, not from the parking lot like most visitors. It was deliberate. She'd been waiting, timing her arrival perfectly. Her long dark hair was pulled into a sleek high ponytail that swayed as she walked. Her outfit screamed money: Lululemon leggings, a fitted Nike jacket, oversized sunglasses despite the cloudy sky. And beside her, skipping to keep up, was a little girl who made my heart stop. Noah hadn't been exaggerating. The child looked exactly like him. The same dark curls. The same nose. Even the same dimple on her left cheek. The resemblance was uncanny, like looking at a photograph of Noah at 6 years old. The child running toward him was not one of ours this time, but a little girl in a bright pink jacket and glitter-covered sneakers. Sophie. She slipped out of the woman's hold and rushed straight to Callum, arms wide, shouting something I couldn't make out from that distance. He crouched and caught her in a hug that looked practiced and natural, the exact same way he embraced Noah and Ava, the same warmth, the same familiarity. My hand automatically moved to the camera icon on my phone. I began snapping photos quickly, almost compulsively, zooming in as far as the lens allowed. Callum's fingers brushed over Sophie's curls, gently ruffling them. The woman was approaching with a soft smile, balancing 2 coffee cups. Callum accepted one with an appreciative nod, the kind of elaborate drink Ava had described, complete with whipped cream piled on top. I kept photographing as the woman, whose name I didn't know yet but soon would, stepped up beside Callum. They weren't touching, but the space between them felt comfortable, almost intimate. Their posture suggested two people who had stood close like this many times before. Meanwhile, Sophie ran off to join Noah and Ava at the jungle gym. I found myself watching all three children move together across the playground, a sight so strange and unreal that I blinked repeatedly just to confirm I wasn't imagining it. They interacted with ease. Noah helped Sophie reach a higher bar, and Ava knelt to show her something on the ground, likely a bug or a shiny rock. It was typical Ava behavior. They behaved like real friends, the kind who saw each other often enough to build routines and inside jokes. And I had been completely unaware of any of it. Callum and the woman slowly shifted toward a nearby bench. Still close enough to watch the playground, yet far enough to speak privately. I adjusted my position slightly, angling my phone to keep them in the frame. Through the screen, I saw Callum rest his hand casually on her lower back. The gesture felt proprietary, something he had done more than once. She leaned subtly into him, not in a dramatic, movie-style way, but in a small, effortless shift, her shoulder brushing his arm. This wasn't the frantic tension of a new affair. There was no clumsy eagerness or nervous caution. This felt established, routine, comfortable, and I had no idea how long it had been happening. How many Saturdays had unfolded exactly like this while I stayed home oblivious? When Noah and Ava ran toward the oak tree, shrieking with laughter about something only children could decipher, Callum turned to the woman and kissed her temple. Quick, familiar, completely unguarded. The kind of unconscious affection someone gives without noticing they've done it. My stomach twisted painfully. Even so, I lifted the phone and took the picture, documenting the truth even while my hands trembled. I continued watching for 40 minutes that dragged on like hours. I watched Callum push Sophie on the swings with the same careful attention he gave Ava. I watched him laugh at something the woman said, that loud, genuine laugh Noah had mentioned, the one I realized he hadn't used with me in a long time. I watched all three children play together with the ease of siblings. At least on those Saturday mornings in Riverside Park. The betrayal cut deeper than I'd anticipated. Callum hadn't simply built a secret life behind my back. He had used our children as part of it. He had brought Noah and Ava into the mix, making them unintentional participants in his affair. What kind of man does that? Around 10:30, I saw Callum check his watch. He called out to Noah and Ava, who groaned in disappointment the way children always do when fun ends. The woman crouched to Sophie's height, said something that made the little girl nod in a serious, almost grown-up way, and then Sophie wrapped her arms around Callum in another long, comfortable hug. After that, she returned to her mother. Everything looked routine, practiced, as if they had perfected this sequence of meeting and separating long ago. I slipped away before Callum noticed me, forcing my shaking legs to carry me out of the park at a normal pace. Just a random mother finishing a morning walk. Nothing unusual. Inside my car 2 blocks away, I gripped the steering wheel for 10 minutes before trusting myself to drive. The photos on my phone were enough to tell the full story. Callum's hand resting on the woman's back. Sophie gazing at him with obvious affection. Their relaxed posture, the body language of people who had known each other for years. I focused on my breathing, slow and controlled. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Crisis management training. Assess the situation. Review the evidence. Prepare a response. Except this time, it wasn't about someone else's crisis. It was mine. And no amount of training could stop the tears that finally broke through, hot, furious, overwhelming. I let myself cry for exactly 10 minutes. Then I wiped my face with fast food napkins from the glove box, fixed my smeared mascara in the rearview mirror, and drove home. By the time I pulled into the driveway, my appearance was composed again, as if I had spent the morning working on that imaginary client presentation instead of standing in a public park watching my marriage fall apart. I locked myself in the bedroom and opened my laptop. The woman's face was visible in several photos. I began with reverse image searches, entering the pictures into search engines with unsteady hands. Nothing appeared immediately. She wasn't a public figure, had no tagged photos. But I had other methods. Property records, business registrations, LinkedIn searches filtered by Boston, interior design, and estimated age. This work was familiar. Tracking down hidden information was literally my profession. Within an hour, I found her. Marina Aldro, 34 years old, an interior designer with her own small firm in Cambridge. Her business website displayed polished living rooms and sleek kitchens, paired with glowing testimonials. No mention of a husband. No photos of Sophie, which wasn't surprising. People often keep their children offline for safety. There were no public links connecting her to Callum, which meant they had been cautious. But not cautious enough. A little before noon, I heard the BMW roll into the driveway. Then the front door opened, followed by Noah and Ava chattering excitedly about Sophie's backflip and the fancy coffee stand their father had visited. I closed my laptop and went downstairs, rearranging my expression into something steady. Callum was helping Ava out of her jacket, and Noah had already rushed toward the television after kicking off his shoes. "How was the park?" I asked from the kitchen doorway. He glanced up at me with an easy, carefree smile. "Great. The kids had a wonderful time. Beautiful morning." A lie delivered with perfect calm. "That's good," I replied, offering a matching smile. "I'm glad you all enjoyed it." Years of dealing with crises had taught me how to keep my composure while everything inside me fractured. Callum had no clue what I had witnessed, what I had uncovered, or what would eventually follow. For now, I allowed him to feel safe. Sunday dragged on with a suffocating kind of normalcy that made me question my own grip on reality. Callum made pancakes for breakfast, his usual weekend routine, decorating them with chocolate chips shaped into smiling faces. Later, we walked around the farmer's market. Noah and Ava darted between the stalls while Callum held my hand as if we were still the picture-perfect couple from our Christmas cards. He played the role effortlessly, almost expertly. I watched him choose apples, joke with the vendor, smile in all the right ways, and I wondered if this hollow, dizzying sensation was what losing your mind felt like, knowing the truth while everyone else moved through a polished lie. By the time we returned home, and he settled the kids in front of a movie, saying he needed to catch up on work in his home office, the need to uncover more details was buzzing through me. I needed to fully understand what I had witnessed in Riverside Park. I waited until I heard his office door shut and the rhythmic clicking of his keyboard. Then I took my laptop into our bedroom and locked the door behind me. Marina Aldridge's online presence was careful, but not non-existent. Her interior design business had a polished website with photos of beautifully staged living rooms and sleek, modern kitchens. Her Instagram profile was public, curated images of her work, the occasional lifestyle shot about morning routines or gratitude. No pictures of Sophie, which made sense. Some parents kept their children offline for safety. There were no signs of Callum. No shared posts. No hints of any connection. They had been cautious, deliberate. But deliberate was not the same thing as untraceable. I checked Cambridge property records next. Searching her name brought up a condominium in Porter Square, inside a renovated building near the T station. The kind of location young professionals paid a premium for. Date of purchase, November 2017. 7 years ago. My hands stalled over the keyboard. Not 4 months. Not even 2 years. 7 years. 7 years of deception woven into the background of our life. And buried in the property documents was Callum's name listed as a cosigner on the mortgage. Legal proof that he had helped her buy the place, tying himself financially to her for almost the entirety of our marriage. It felt like I was falling, even though I hadn't moved from the bed. November 2017. 2 months after I had gotten pregnant with Ava. 2 months after we toasted with champagne and told our families the good news. While I battled first trimester exhaustion and morning sickness, Callum had been signing mortgage papers for another woman's home. Forcing myself forward, I opened the shared folder where our bank statements had been stored for years. I rarely checked them. Callum handled the finances, and I trusted him. Foolishly. Painfully. I opened the most recent 6 months and scrolled through familiar charges, groceries, gas stations, school fees, all predictable. Then came the monthly retainer, Boston Consulting Group, $2,000, appearing like clockwork. Same amount every month. I pulled older statements. 2 years back. 3 years back. The same $2,000 every single month. I grabbed my phone and called the Massachusetts Business Registry through the after-hours automated line. I entered the business name, waited for the system to search. No entity found. Boston Consulting Group did not exist. It was a fake. A shell Callum had created to funnel money to Marina. $2,000 a month for 7 years. My crisis-trained brain did the calculation automatically. $168,000. Almost $200,000 of our money quietly siphoned away to support his other family while I stretched our budget, clipped coupons, and debated whether refinishing the hardwood floors was financially feasible. The magnitude of it was overwhelming. This wasn't just adultery. This was long-term, intentional financial fraud disguised as routine expenses, built on the assumption that I would be too busy, too trusting, too devoted to my demanding career to examine anything closely. I opened our digital photo albums next, scrolling backward through carefully documented memories, vacations, birthdays, holidays, everything preserved in smiling images. Ava's birth, October 2019. I remembered the emergency complications, the painful recovery, the crushing postpartum fatigue. Callum had been supportive, yes, but distant. He traveled more for work that winter, or that was the story I had accepted. I kept scrolling. Noah's third birthday in 2018, the dinosaur-themed party I spent weeks planning. Our anniversary trip to Vermont in 2017, the romantic weekend where we stayed in a cozy bed and breakfast, hiked through the fall leaves, talked about our future and how lucky we were. 2 months later, Callum bought Marina a condo. If Sophie was 6 now, she would have been born in 2018. I opened a calendar and counted backward. Pregnancy lasts 9 months, which meant Marina became pregnant around. My vision wavered. December 2017. January 2018. While I was carrying Ava, decorating the nursery, fighting through second trimester exhaustion, Callum had been getting another woman pregnant. 2 babies, 2 households. 2 parallel lives running beside each other without ever intersecting. While I prepared for our daughter, Marina prepared for hers. Did he ever confuse the details? Mix up conversations? Forget which baby furniture he was supposed to pretend to be excited about? The screen blurred. I wanted to throw the laptop, smash it against the wall. Instead, I closed it gently and sat frozen in the quiet of our bedroom, listening to the faint clicking of Callum's keyboard down the hall. He had no idea. No idea that his carefully hidden 7-year double life was unraveling because our son had asked a simple, innocent question at breakfast. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. Myra's name lit up the screen, her usual weekend text asking if I wanted to meet for coffee Monday morning. I stared at it, picturing her fierce, protective expression. She had always been the one who fought for me. And I needed to talk to someone, to say all of this out loud before it swallowed me whole. But not yet. I needed to gather every fact first. I needed to know everything before deciding on my next move. I texted her back, can't tomorrow. Buried in client work. Maybe next week. The life flowed easily. I was becoming disturbingly good at this. Monday morning arrived with a clear, sharp certainty, the kind that only forms after a sleepless night spent analyzing every scenario. I had spent 10 years helping influential people survive their worst scandals. Politicians, executives, public figures caught in disasters of their own making. I had collected favors, built connections, held leverage. Now it was time to use it. I waited for Callum to leave for work and for the kids to board the school bus. Then I picked up the phone and called Claudia Mercer. Claudia was the best divorce attorney in the entire state of Massachusetts, the kind of lawyer other attorneys quietly recommended when a situation turned complicated. She also happened to owe me a favor. 2 years earlier, her husband's congressional campaign had been on the verge of collapsing under a lobbying scandal. I had managed the crisis, shaped the narrative, and saved his career. she answered before the first ring finished. Ilara Winslow. To what do I owe the pleasure? Her tone was warm but efficient, crisp in the way of someone who never wasted time on pleasantries. I need a consultation, I told her. Today. Private entrance. Absolute discretion. There was a brief pause, and it was enough for me to know she understood immediately. Claudia had handled family law long enough to recognize the voice of a woman who had just uncovered something catastrophic. 2 o'clock, she said. I'll clear my schedule. Come through the garage entrance. Elevator goes directly to my floor. The next 3 hours were spent compiling everything into a presentation that could have impressed my most demanding clients. I organized the Cambridge condo property records with Callum's name clearly listed. The bank statements highlighting the bogus consulting charges. Screenshots of the payments stretching back 7 years. The time-stamped photos from Riverside Park. A timeline showing the overlap between my pregnancy with Ava and what must have been Marina's pregnancy with Sophie. By the time I stepped into Claudia's office overlooking Boston Common, I carried a case file that could have gone before a judge immediately. Her office looked exactly like the space of someone at the top of her field, floor-to-ceiling windows, expensive furniture that managed to be both comfortable and imposing, shelves lined with law books and framed awards. She rose when I entered, extending her hand. Ilara, it's good to see you, though I'm truly sorry for the circumstances. Thank you for making time on such short notice. For you, always. She gestured toward the set of leather chairs arranged around a small conference table. Show me what you have. I spread everything out with the same clinical precision I used for my highest-stakes crisis clients. I began with the children's innocent comment, walked her through my time at the park, then moved into the financial evidence and property documents. Claudia listened without interrupting. For the first few minutes she remained professionally unreadable, but gradually her expression shifted, sharpening. When I finished, she removed her glasses and fixed me with a look that reminded me exactly why she was feared in her field. This is extraordinary, she said. Ilara, I have practiced family law for 28 years. I've dealt with infidelity, hidden accounts, secret children, but this? She motioned to the documents. The dual life. The financial structure. 7 years of deception. This is far beyond an affair. This is financial fraud. She picked up the bank statements, studying the repeated transfers. If he categorized these fake consulting fees as business expenses on tax filings, that's federal exposure. If he hid related income from the IRS, there could be criminal implications beyond the divorce itself. I'm not looking to send him to prison, I said evenly. I want leverage. A sharp smile crossed her face, cold and precise. Then you came to the right place. With documentation like this, we can secure terms people usually spend years fighting over. Full custody, no judge will allow broad visitation to a father who used his children as camouflage. The house will be yours. His retirement accounts. Spousal support based on his real income, including everything he has tried to hide. He will agree to anything to keep this out of court. She reached for a legal pad and began taking notes in her neat, exact handwriting. We'll start with emergency temporary orders, exclusive use of the home, immediate financial disclosure, supervised visitation only. Then we address the fraud. We spent the next hour constructing strategy. Claudia asked specific questions about assets, Callum's work, whether I wanted the outcome public or contained. I answered all of it, feeling a strange, calm clarity, the relief that comes from action after the suffocating paralysis of anger. When I left her office, I had not just a divorce strategy, but a blueprint for dismantling every piece of the life Callum had built on lies. Walking back to my car, the October air felt sharper, cleaner. For the first time since Saturday, I felt grounded. I wasn't a helpless spouse. I was a strategist armed with documentation, legal force, and 10 years of crisis management expertise. Callum had no idea what was coming. And I planned to keep it that way until the exact moment I chose to strike. I spent Monday night and all of Tuesday preparing. Claudia was handling the legal front. My work was the confrontation. The moment Callum would realize his meticulously crafted 7-year lie had collapsed. In my field, timing meant everything. You never reveal a crisis during a slow news cycle when it will dominate attention. You don't confront someone when they expect it. You wait for the moment when their guard is down, when they feel untouchably safe. Tuesday evening, I cooked Callum's favorite dinner, pan-seared salmon with an herb crust, roasted vegetables drizzled with balsamic glaze, garlic mashed potatoes from scratch. I set the dining table with our good china, the wedding gift set we reserved for Thanksgiving and Christmas, linen napkins, candles in the silver holders his mother had given us, and a bottle of Cabernet from the wine rack, the expensive one he saved for special occasions. The entire setup was deliberate. I dressed the part as well. Not overly dramatic, just his favorite navy wrap dress, minimal makeup, hair loose around my shoulders. I looked exactly like a wife trying to reconnect with her husband, hoping for a romantic evening. When Callum came home at 6:30, he paused in the dining room doorway, briefcase in hand, confusion flickering across his face. "What's the occasion?" he asked as he stepped inside. I turned from lighting the last candle and offered a warm smile. "Can I make a special dinner for my husband?" He visibly relaxed, the tension draining from his posture. He kissed my cheek, a touch that made my skin crawl, but I maintained the soft expression. "You've been working so hard lately," I told him. "I thought we could use a nice evening together." "That's really thoughtful, Viv," he said, loosening his tie, genuinely pleased. "Let me go wash up." I timed everything to the minute. The salmon was finishing in the oven just as he came back downstairs in jeans and a casual button-down. I poured the wine, served the meal, and slipped fully into the performance of normalcy. Throughout dinner, I kept the conversation light, asking about his development project in Cambridge. The irony of that was not lost on me. I mentioned Noah's upcoming school assignment and Ava's latest obsession with fairy tales. Nothing that mattered. Nothing that would make him suspicious. I let him drink most of the bottle. A relaxed man makes mistakes. A relaxed man talks too much. A relaxed man forgets to guard himself. After we finished eating, just as Callum reached for another helping of mashed potatoes, I delivered the line as casually as if I were mentioning weekend plans. "I've been thinking about that job offer from the Seattle firm. The equity partnership. I'm considering accepting it." His fork froze halfway to his mouth. I watched every flicker across his face, the initial surprise, the quick calculating shift, and then the unmistakable relief. He was already imagining how my move across the country could solve his problem, how distance would make it easier to juggle two families in the same city. "Seattle," he repeated, setting the fork down, trying to sound cautious instead of hopeful. "But your entire client base is here. You've spent 10 years building those relationships." "I can build new ones," I said calmly. "Fresh start, new opportunities." I refilled his wine glass, watching the red swirl in the candlelight. The kids would adjust. New schools, new routines. We could relocate by spring. I could see the wheels turning. Then, the hesitation, the confusion. "Of course," I added lightly, moving vegetables around my plate. "We'd need to talk logistics. Custody arrangements. Splitting assets. All of that." His fork clattered against his plate. "Custody arrangements?" His voice was tight, controlled, but the edge was unmistakable. "Elara, what are you talking about?" I tilted my head, playing innocent. "Well, I assumed with your business here, with everything you're committed to." I let the sentence trail off. "All your Saturday commitments at Riverside Park." Color drained from Callum's face so quickly I thought he might faint. He gripped the edge of the table, knuckles white. "What Saturday commitments?" he asked, but the wavering in his voice betrayed him. I set down my fork slowly and let the silence stretch. 1 beat. 2. 3. "Riverside Park," I said at last. "Marina Aldridge. And Sophie." The wine glass slipped from his hand, his fingers suddenly useless. Red wine splashed across the white tablecloth, blooming like a spreading wound, exactly what it was. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened again. No words. I watched the frantic flicker in his eyes as he scrambled for explanations, excuses, denials. I stood, retrieved my laptop from the sideboard where I'd placed it earlier, and opened it on the table. I turned the screen so he could see the photos from Saturday, Callum's hand on Marina's back. Sophie's arms around him. The kiss on her temple. The 3 children playing together. Beautiful child, I said evenly. She has your eyes and Noah's nose. The resemblance is really quite something. Genetics can be funny. Elara, I can explain, he finally gasped out, desperation thick in his voice. I raised a hand. Don't. I've already met with Claudia Mercer. His expression collapsed. I have 7 years of bank transfers documenting systematic financial fraud, I continued. Property records with your signature. Photos. And confirmation that the Boston consulting group you supposedly pay is a non-existent shell company you created to hide payments to Marina. I scrolled through the documents, letting him see each piece, the highlighted bank statements, the property records, the business registry search showing no such entity. We won't even need DNA testing, I added. Though we can do it if you'd like. Sophie looks more like Noah than Ava ever has. Callum's face cycled through terror, calculation, confusion, despair, his entire world collapsing in real time. You can't do this, he finally stammered. It will destroy your career. Your reputation. Everything you've built in Boston real estate. My reputation? I finished for him. Probably. But here's the thing, Callum. I manage crises for the most powerful people in this city. Politicians. CEOs. People whose secrets could topple empires. Creating a crisis is far easier than cleaning one up. I leaned forward so he could fully see the fury I'd held back for days. Here's what is going to happen. You're moving into the guest room tonight. Not tomorrow, tonight. Tomorrow, you will be in Claudia's office discussing settlement terms. And you are going to be extremely generous with those terms. Elara, please. His hands were shaking as he reached for me. I pulled away. Do not touch me. Why are you doing this? He asked, voice cracking, as if he was the one being wronged. Why? I repeated, laughing once, sharp, hollow. You built a second family and used our children as your alibi. You brought Noah and Ava to your secret park dates and turned them into accomplices without their knowledge. You drained our accounts for 7 years while I clipped coupons and worried about retirement. And you lied every single day. Every morning kiss. Every evening greeting. Every Saturday family outing. I never meant to hurt you, he whispered. You never meant to get caught, I corrected. There's a difference. I closed the laptop with a crisp snap. I'm doing this because I'm good at my job, Callum. And right now, my job is taking you apart as efficiently as possible. I picked up the laptop. The guest room is ready. I changed the sheets this morning, how thoughtful of me. Callum sat there, stunned, devastated, still struggling to comprehend how quickly everything had collapsed. He had believed he was careful, believed he was clever, believed he could control every piece of his double life. He forgot one thing. His wife was smarter. What I didn't reveal, the detail I was saving for the perfect moment, was the discovery I had made earlier that afternoon. The one that turned this from a simple divorce into something that could put him behind bars. After leaving Claudia's office, I had continued digging into Marina's past. And I found the records from the fertility clinic where I had donated eggs 7 years earlier. Back when Mira was battling cancer and the medical bills were crushing both of us, I had donated eggs anonymously to help cover her treatment costs. The clinic assured me my identity would stay confidential, that my genetic material would go to families who desperately wanted children. It had felt like the right thing to do, a way to survive an impossible situation. But now, staring at the documents I'd uncovered, I saw Callum's signature on the authorization forms. Signatures that weren't mine. Consent forms forged in my name. Payment records showing money exchanged with clinic staff who had looked the other way. He hadn't only had a child with another woman. He had used my genetic material to do it. He had stolen my eggs. He had used them to create Sophie with Marina. And I had been completely unaware. Sophie wasn't only Callum's daughter. She was biologically mine as well, my DNA, my genetics. My child, raised by someone I had never met, living an entire life for 6 years while I remained oblivious to her existence. The violation was so profound it barely fit inside language. This wasn't infidelity. This wasn't deception. This was medical fraud, reproductive coercion, identity theft. A federal crime with penalties that reached far beyond divorce. But I wasn't revealing that part yet. In crisis management, your most devastating evidence is always held back until the precise moment it will deliver the maximum impact. You let your opponent believe they see the full picture, and then you drop the piece they never considered. I watched Callum move down the hall toward the guest room, shoulders sagging, moving like a man who had just realized his world was ending. He believed he understood what was happening. He thought this was about the affair, the money, the years of lying. He had no idea that I was not simply tearing him down. I was taking everything, including my daughter. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. I lay in our bed, the bed we had shared for 10 years, staring at the ceiling while Callum tossed and turned down the hall. Every creak of the house felt magnified. Every shift of the wind sounded like accusation. Around 3 o'clock in the morning, I stopped pretending and went downstairs with my laptop. I made coffee I never drank, then pulled up the fertility clinic files again, reading through them with the obsessive focus of someone whose entire reality had changed in one brutal moment. My eggs. My genetic material. Taken without permission and used to create a child I never knew existed. The sheer enormity of the violation pressed on my chest like weight. This wasn't betrayal, it was the theft of something foundational, the theft of choice, of control over my own body and future. By sunrise Wednesday morning, I had assembled everything into a separate folder, evidence that transformed this from a divorce into a federal criminal case. I met Claudia in her office at 9 o'clock, before her regular appointments began. She was already there, coffee in hand, looking like she'd slept no better than I had. I laid the fertility clinic documents on her conference table without a word. Authorization forms bearing forged versions of my signature. Payment records showing off-the-books transfers to clinic employees. Medical documentation confirming Sophie's genetic parentage, half Callum, half me. Claudia picked up one document, then another, then another. Her professional mask cracked for the first time since I had known her. Her hands actually trembled as she read. "Alara, this is." She removed her reading glasses, staring at me with something between awe and shock. I have been practicing family law for 28 years. I have seen abuse, fraud, cruelty, but I have never encountered anything like this. She spread the files across the table, reviewing each line with the intense focus that made her legendary. This is not just reproductive coercion. This is medical fraud, identity theft, forgery, and likely bribery of medical staff. The criminal exposure here is enormous. My voice came out steadier than I felt. 7 years ago, Mira was fighting stage 3 cancer. The treatment was bankrupting us. I donated eggs to help cover the bills. The clinic told me everything was anonymous and protected. Callum accessed my medical records, forged my consent, and paid staff to ignore it. He stole my eggs and used them to conceive Sophie with Marina. Claudia was already taking notes in her precise handwriting. We file emergency motions immediately. Biological parentage overrides all other custody factors. Sophie is legally your daughter, regardless of who has been raising her. She looked up, meeting my eyes. "Alara, this changes everything. We are no longer dealing only with divorce. We are dealing with criminal charges that could put Callum in federal prison." "Good," I said, and meant it. That afternoon, Claudia brought in Daphne Rowe, a forensic accountant known for uncovering hidden assets in the most complex cases. Daphne was in her 40s, sharp-eyed and sharper-minded, the kind of woman who could glance at a ledger and instantly see what someone was hiding. She spread out our financial documents across the entire conference room: bank statements, tax returns, property records, business filings. 7 years of Callum's deception laid bare under harsh fluorescent lighting. I sat and watched as Daphne worked, highlighting numbers, cross-referencing accounts, drawing lines between patterns with steady, practiced expertise. By late Thursday afternoon, she had uncovered things even I hadn't thought to investigate. "He's been diverting money since before Sophie was born," Daphne explained, turning her laptop screen so we could see her compiled spreadsheets. "Not just the $2,000 a month to Marina. That's actually the smallest piece." She pointed to lines of highlighted figures that made my stomach twist. He's been inflating business expenses, hiding income through shell corporations, fabricating consulting fees that all lead back to accounts he controls. Look here, this development in Worcester. He inflated the project costs by 30% and pocketed the difference. This Cambridge renovation too, Daphne added, pulling up another set of spreadsheets. How much? Claudia asked, her tone sharp and clipped. Daphne scrolled, her expression tightening. Based on what I've found so far, close to $2 million over 7 years. Possibly more if I keep digging. $2 million. While I had been clipping coupons, adjusting our household budget, and debating whether we could afford to refinish the hardwood floors, Callum had been funneling away staggering amounts of money behind my back. My stomach twisted. I felt physically nauseous. Claudia and Daphne exchanged a glance, the kind professionals share when they both realize the situation is about to become far more complicated. This level of fraud carries federal implications, Claudia said carefully. We're talking tax evasion, wire fraud, potentially money laundering, depending on the channels he used. We would need to notify the authorities, the IRS, possibly the FBI. I thought about that. The criminal investigations. The federal charges. A prison sentence measured not in months, but in years. The public fallout that would destroy everything he had built. And then I thought about Sophie. About Noah and Ava. About the life he had so meticulously shattered while pretending to be a devoted husband and father. Do whatever is necessary, I told them. I want it all documented, every dollar he stole, every lie he told, every law he broke. Later that Thursday afternoon, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. I was sitting in my car outside the grocery store, staring blankly at a shopping list I couldn't process. I almost let the call go to voicemail, but something in me said to answer. Alara Winslow, I said. A woman's voice came through, shaky and unsure. This is Marina Aldridge. Please don't hang up. I froze. Of all the people I expected to hear from, Marina was at the absolute bottom of the list, the mistress, the woman I had envisioned as my enemy, the person who'd helped Callum build his double life. I'm listening, I said, keeping my tone calm and neutral. A long pause followed. I heard her breathing, traffic in the distance. Then her voice cracked. I just received notice about the custody filings. The paperwork says Sophie is biologically yours. Alara, I swear to God, I didn't know. Callum told me you agreed to everything. My grip tightened on the steering wheel until my knuckles whitened. Agreed to what exactly? I asked. He told me you couldn't carry another pregnancy after Ava, Marina said, her words trembling. He said it had been too dangerous for you, but you still wanted him to have more children. He told me it was all arranged, that you'd signed consent forms, that this was something you wanted. She inhaled shakily. He showed me documents with your signature. Medical authorizations. I never questioned them. I thought it was some modern arrangement. I thought you were aware, that you were okay with it. God, I'm so stupid. She was crying openly now. I never meant to hurt you, she whispered. I never meant to be part of this. For the first time since this nightmare began, my anger flickered. I had imagined Marina as the villain, the willing accomplice, the destroyer of my marriage, but she sounded as blindsided as I was, as manipulated, as used. Did he tell you he was married? I asked quietly. Yes. He was honest about that part, she said. But he told me your marriage was unconventional. That you were focused on your career, that you had essentially agreed to this arrangement. He made it sound like the three of us were part of something progressive, something modern that worked for everyone. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I was 30 years old and desperate for a family. I had just ended a long-term relationship that went nowhere. I wanted a child so badly that I believed everything he said. He was so convincing. We talked for more than an hour. She told me everything, how they met at an open house, how he pursued her, how he crafted a story that made his betrayal sound like a carefully structured and mutually agreed situation. He had tailored every lie to sound reasonable. He knew exactly what to say, Marina murmured. He made it sound like we were pioneers instead of what it really was. He showed you forged documents, I reminded her gently. With my signature. The fertility clinic records prove it. He paid staff to bypass authorization. You weren't helping him, Marina. You were being used. We both were. A sob escaped her. What happens now to Sophie? I breathed slowly, thinking of the little girl with Noah's nose and my dimples, my biological daughter who had been raised by someone else for 6 years. We make her transition as gentle as possible, I said softly. She is 6 years old, and none of this is her fault. She didn't ask for any of it. You want custody? Marina asked, voice small. Full custody, I answered. She's my biological daughter. But I don't want to traumatize her. We will figure out a plan, therapy, gradual transition, whatever will help her. You have been her mother for 6 years. That matters. When we ended the call, I stayed in my car and cried, really cried, for the first time since everything began. Not just for myself. Not just for my daughter. But for Marina too. 2 women who should have hated each other, both trapped in the same web of lies spun by the same man. The grocery list sat ignored on the passenger seat. I had come to buy milk and bread, the mundane pieces of family life, and instead I had gained an unexpected ally. Somehow, that felt like the first genuine step toward repairing what could still be saved. Friday morning, Claudia filed the emergency motions. I wasn't present when she submitted everything to the courthouse. She told me it was better if I stayed home, maintained normalcy for Noah and Ava, and let the legal process take over. But I felt it anyway, the shift. The moment our private catastrophe became official court business. The moment Callum's lies were entered into legal filings that would follow him for the rest of his life. The courthouse moved faster than I expected. Claudia called Friday afternoon, and even through her professional tone, I could hear the hint of surprise. We have a preliminary hearing Monday at 2 o'clock, she said. Judge Helena Carrington, excellent judge, no nonsense, has seen everything, won't tolerate games. That fast? I asked. The medical fraud moved it to the top of the docket. Reproductive coercion cases get immediate attention. And honestly, she added, my reputation helped. Judge Carrington knows I don't file emergency motions unless they're urgent. Monday afternoon arrived with the weight of inevitability. I dressed carefully, a conservative navy suit, minimal jewelry, hair pulled back. I looked exactly like what I needed to be, a professional woman seeking justice, not revenge. Claudia met me outside the courthouse, briefcase in hand, projecting the calm intensity of someone preparing to wage war in the most civilized possible manner. Callum will be here with counsel, she warned as we moved through security. He hired someone over the weekend. Lucas Keating from a small firm in Cambridge. Good lawyer, but he's outmatched and he knows it. We entered the courtroom 15 minutes early. Callum arrived 10 minutes later with an attorney who looked barely 35, young and nervous, carrying a briefcase that still seemed stiff from the store shelf. He introduced himself with a handshake slightly too forceful, as if trying to compensate for the tremor in his voice. Callum didn't look at me. He kept his gaze fixed straight ahead, jaw clenched so tightly I could see the muscle twitching. Judge Helena Carrington entered precisely at 2 o'clock. She appeared to be in her early 60s, hair cut short and silver, eyes sharp and discerning. The bailiff called the room to order, and she settled into her chair like a woman who had presided over thousands of cases and had no tolerance for theatrics. This is a preliminary hearing on emergency motions filed by petitioner Alara Winslow regarding custody of the minor child, Sophie Aldridge, she announced, reviewing the stack of documents. I have read the initial filings. The allegations are serious. She looked straight at Callum. Mr. Winslow, I am going to ask you some direct questions. Answer yes or no. Your attorney may object if legally necessary, but I want simple answers first. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor, Callum managed. Did you access your wife's genetic material from a fertility clinic without her knowledge or consent? Lucas Keating half rose from his seat, but Judge Carrington lifted one hand. This is a yes or no question, Counselor. Your client will answer. Callum's voice was barely audible. Yes, Your Honor, but I can explain. I am not asking for explanations yet. Did you forge authorization documents bearing your wife's signature? Yes, but... Did you make payments to clinic staff to facilitate the unauthorized use of this genetic material? Your Honor, if I could, Keating began. Judge Carrington's expression hardened. Mr. Winslow, I asked a yes or no question. Did you pay clinic staff? Callum swallowed. Yes. The word hung in the courtroom like a confession at a murder trial. Judge Carrington removed her reading glasses and studied him with a look so sharp. Even standing on the right side of the case, I felt uneasy. I have heard enough for today. Temporary custody of the minor child, Sophie Aldridge, is granted to Mrs. Winslow pending full evaluation. Mr. Winslow is prohibited from contact with the child until further notice. We will reconvene in 2 weeks for a full hearing. She turned to Keating. Counselor, I strongly suggest advising your client about the severity of his situation. These allegations have criminal implications. Callum's face collapsed. His lawyer touched his shoulder, but Callum shrugged him off and walked out without a backward glance. Claudia squeezed my hand under the table. That went better than expected. It felt hollow. A legal victory, yes, confirmation that Sophie was biologically mine and that Callum had committed multiple acts of fraud. But none of that eased the reality that Sophie's entire world was about to shift. No court ruling could make that transition painless. The next week was filled with hearings, testimony, and revelations that twisted deeper with every new document. Marina appeared as a witness on Wednesday. She entered the courtroom composed, but visibly devastated, simple black dress, small earrings, nothing else. She looked as if she had aged 5 years in the 10 days since this began. Claudia questioned her gently, establishing the timeline, the lies Callum told, the forged papers he presented. Did Ms. Aldridge know that Mrs. Winslow had not consented to the use of her genetic material? Claudia asked. No, Marina said firmly, though tears streamed down her face. I was told Mrs. Winslow approved everything. Callum showed me consent forms with her signature, medical releases. I had no reason to doubt them. What did Mr. Winslow tell you about his marriage? That it was unconventional but consensual, Marina answered. That Alara was focused on her career, that she had agreed to this arrangement because it worked for everyone. Her voice cracked. He made it sound progressive, like we were creating some modern family structure. I believed him because I wanted to believe him. During cross-examination, Lucas Keating attempted to paint her as a willing accomplice, someone who knowingly participated in deceit. She didn't flinch. I thought I was a second partner in an open marriage, she said, voice steady. When I learned the truth, that Alara had no knowledge of any of this, that I had been raising her biological daughter under false pretenses, I was horrified. Keating leaned in. But you continued the relationship for 7 years. Because I believed his lies for 7 years, Marina shot back. The moment I learned the truth, I cut all contact. I have cooperated fully with Mrs. Winslow's attorney. I am not fighting the custody transfer. Sophie deserves to be with her biological mother. After her testimony, while Claudia handled paperwork, Marina approached me in the hallway. We stood awkwardly, 2 women bound by a deception neither of us knew we were living inside. I'm not going to fight the custody transfer, she said quietly. Sophie is your daughter, biologically, legally. I had no right to raise her under false pretenses, no matter how much I love her. Tears streamed down her cheeks, but she didn't bother wiping them away. Please, can I still see her? Not as her mother, I know I don't deserve that, but something. She is the only family I have. I know I have no right to ask, but... Yes, I interrupted gently. Of course you can see her. You have been her mother for 6 years, Marina. That matters. We will work something out, supervised visits, therapy sessions, whatever helps Sophie adjust. She nodded silently, unable to speak, and turned away before she completely fell apart. That night, I faced one of the hardest conversations of my life. Noah, Ava, and I sat together on the living room couch while I tried to find words gentle enough to explain that their familiar Saturday park friend was actually their sister. You know how we talked about Daddy's friend Sophie from the park? I began carefully. Noah nodded, reaching into the bowl of popcorn I had made as a sort of emotional buffer. The one who looks like me, right? Well, I said softly, I need to tell you something important. Sophie is your sister. Ava's eyes widened. Like, a for-real sister? Not just a friend. For real, I confirmed. She has the same mommy and daddy as you, even though another woman raised her. Noah frowned. But how? You weren't pregnant. I would have remembered if you were. I took a breath, choosing the simplest, most age-appropriate explanation I could. Sometimes families are created in different ways. Sophie was made using special cells from Daddy and me, but another woman carried her and raised her. We didn't know about her until recently. So she's our real sister? Ava asked again, needing reassurance. Yes, sweetheart. She is. Noah thought for a long moment, then asked, is she going to live with us? Yes. It will be a big change for everyone, especially Sophie. She will need a lot of patience and kindness while she adjusts. Can she have the room next to mine? Ava asked immediately. I can show her all my stuffed animals. That night, once the kids were asleep, I called my sister, Mira, and told her everything I had kept from her for 2 weeks, the affair, the secret daughter, the medical fraud, the custody battle. I need help, Mira. I can't handle 3 kids and this legal nightmare alone. I'll be there this weekend, she said instantly. No hesitation. No questions about time or cost. Pack a bag for a few months. You are not doing any of this alone. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner, I whispered. I was trying to process everything. Alara, stop. You are allowed to fall apart. That is what I'm here for. Claudia scheduled the first official meeting for the following Tuesday at the office of Dr. Lena Hahn, a child therapist who specialized in family transitions. It was neutral ground for Sophie to meet me as her biological mother. I was terrified. What do you say to a 6-year-old whose entire world is shifting? Sophie arrived with Marina, clutching a well-loved stuffed rabbit with one ear frayed. She was beautiful, dark curls escaping 2 braids, Noah's distinctive nose, my dimples appearing whenever she smiled nervously. When she saw Noah and Ava in the waiting room, her face brightened. Are we having a special play date? Marina had clearly prepared her well, making this sound exciting instead of frightening. Dr. Hahn led us into her office, warm, full of toys, books, and comforting furniture. She guided the conversation gently. Sophie, do you remember meeting these people before? Sophie nodded shyly. At the park. That's Noah and Ava. That's right, Dr. Hahn said. And this is Alara. She is Noah and Ava's mommy. I know, Sophie whispered, hugging her rabbit tighter. Dr. Hahn smiled softly. Sophie, Alara is your mommy too. You grew in a very special way, and now you have 2 families who love you very much. Sophie looked confused, but not frightened. She studied me, then turned to Marina for confirmation. Can I still see you? She asked in a tiny voice. Of course, I said quickly, before Marina could even answer. Marina will always be part of your life. We are making your family bigger, not replacing anyone. Sophie thought for a moment, then turned to Noah and Ava. Can we play now? Just like that, she was 6 years old again, focused on toys and games, accepting what we told her with the resilience only children have. I watched her playing with my other children, my 3 children, and felt something inside me shift. This was my daughter. And I would make it work. The transition Dr. Hahn planned was supposed to be slow weekly visits, then overnights, then weekends, then full custody. A careful, gentle progression to protect a 6-year-old whose world was changing. But 3 weeks into the custody process, everything sped up. I was making lunch on a Thursday afternoon when the doorbell rang. Through the window, I saw an unmarked sedan and a woman in a dark pantsuit on my front steps. Detective Lena Calder, Boston PD's Fraud Division, she said, holding up her badge. Mrs. Winslow, I need to discuss findings from your divorce case. May I come in? We sat in the living room while Noah and Ava watched cartoons upstairs, unaware of what was unfolding. Detective Calder was mid-40s, no nonsense, the kind of officer who had seen it all. She spread documents across my coffee table with practiced efficiency. Your forensic accountant's findings triggered a deeper investigation, she said. What we uncovered goes far beyond hiding assets during a divorce. Mrs. Winslow, your husband wasn't only stealing from you. He was systematically defrauding business partners and clients. I stared at bank records, development contracts, construction budgets. The fake Boston Consulting Group was just one shell, she continued. He created dozens. He inflated project costs, skimmed from construction budgets, and funneled phantom consulting fees into offshore accounts. She pointed at highlighted figures. This Worcester development, he told investors it cost $4 million. Actual costs were $2.8 million. He kept the difference. Same scheme across multiple projects over 7 years. How much total? I asked, sounding distant even to myself. Over $2 million in documented fraud so far. Likely more. Then Detective Calder looked directly at me. The district attorney is filing federal charges, wire fraud, tax evasion, money laundering. This is extremely serious. If convicted, Mr. Winslow is looking at 10 to 15 years. It depends on the counts and whether he cooperates. I pictured Noah and Ava visiting their father in federal prison. I pictured Sophie, who barely knew him, carrying the weight of his crimes. You'll likely be called to testify, she added. The hidden accounts, the deception, all of it. I took a long breath. Whatever is necessary, I said finally. He made his choices. Detective Calder gathered her documents and nodded once. The DA will be in touch. In the meantime, if Callum contacts you directly, document everything. He's getting desperate. She was right. 2 days later, Callum showed up at our house. I was helping Noah get ready for soccer practice when I heard pounding on the front door, urgent, heavy, aggressive. Alara, open the door. I know you're in there. Noah's eyes widened. Is that Dad? Go upstairs with Ava, I whispered. Lock your bedroom door. Don't come out until I say so. I called the police first, then approached the door. I didn't open it, I spoke through the wood. Callum, there is a restraining order. You are not supposed to be here. Please, his voice cracked. Just listen. I can explain everything. The money, the accounts, all of it. If you just drop the charges. Drop the charges? A bitter laugh escaped me. You stole from me for 7 years. You committed medical fraud. You defrauded your business partners. This is not about me anymore, Callum. This is federal. I'll lose everything, he cried. My business, my reputation. Think about the kids, Alara. Noah and Ava deserve to have their father. You should have thought about that, I said coldly, before you built a second family and stole millions of dollars. Police arrived within minutes, 2 officers who looked like they'd seen this situation 100 times before. Domestic disputes were nothing new. They escorted Callum away while he shouted apologies, threats, promises, desperate pleas that echoed through our quiet street. Mrs. Whitaker watched from her window. So did the Carters across the road. By morning, the entire neighborhood would know. After that, Callum tried calling. I blocked him. Then he emailed, chaotic messages alternating between begging for mercy and threatening to fight for custody. His mother called, sobbing. He made a terrible mistake, Alara, but he's still their father. Those children need him. He is a criminal, I replied, voice ice cold. And the children are better off without him. Do not call again. His business partners reacted far less sympathetically. Within a week, 3 separate lawsuits were filed, civil claims seeking damages for money Callum had siphoned from development projects. His commercial real estate firm imploded almost overnight. Properties were frozen mid-development, investors demanded investigations, and everything Callum had built over 15 years disintegrated in a spectacular, public collapse. I watched the fallout with a mixture of grim satisfaction and unexpected grief. I had loved this man once. I had married him believing we would build a life together. The fact that he destroyed it all through greed and sustained deception didn't erase the memory of those early years, even though they now felt like carefully constructed illusions. Claudia kept me updated on every legal development. He's trying to negotiate a plea deal, she said. He wants to avoid trial. The prosecutors are considering it. He's offering full cooperation and testimony against business partners who may have participated. He is willing to forfeit all assets. Will they accept? Probably. Trials are expensive. If he gives them bigger targets and accepts responsibility, they'll reduce the sentence. He is still looking at 5 to 8 years, but it is far better than 15. Boston's elite circles were small and ruthless. Within days of the charges becoming public, I received calls from former friends who suddenly needed to create distance. Coffee dates mysteriously canceled. Dinner invitations evaporated. At school pickup, other parents whispered and stared, pulling their children away from mine like criminal behavior was contagious. Noah came home crying one afternoon, shoulders slumped, backpack dragging on the ground. Tyler's mom said our dad is a bad man, he sobbed. She said we can't have playdates anymore because I'm probably bad too. I held him while he cried, fury burning hot at grown adults who punished children for their parents' crimes. But then unexpected kindness. Senator Daphne Rhodes called me personally. Alara, I know what you're going through. The press, the whispers, the judgment. If you need anything at all, I'm here. Recommendations, connections, support, anything. 2 longtime clients also reached out, offering support without hesitation. People who remembered that I had once saved their careers, managed their worst scandals, and never betrayed their confidence. My sister Mira became my lifeline. She had moved in the weekend after Sophie's first visit, taking over the 3rd-floor guest suite and immediately becoming indispensable. She handled school pickups when I was in court. She cooked dinner on the nights I could barely function. She sat with me late at night when the weight of everything felt unbearable. You're doing the right thing, she reminded me again and again. Sophie deserves her real family. And Callum deserves consequences. Sophie officially moved in on a Saturday in late October. The leaves were bright with fall colors, and the air carried the first hints of winter. Marina brought her mid-morning, holding a backpack full of clothes, the stuffed rabbit, and tears she tried desperately to hide. Dr. Han came, too, to guide the transition, calm, gentle, steady, while 2 families rearranged themselves around one small girl. We'll see each other every Tuesday and Thursday, Marina told Sophie, kneeling to her level. And you can call me anytime. Alara has my number. Promise? Promise, Sophie whispered, her voice tiny and afraid. The first week was brutal. Sophie cried for Marina every night. She wandered through the house uncertain and overwhelmed, unsure where she belonged. She asked over and over when she could go home, and each time shattered something inside me. But Noah and Ava were extraordinary. They treated Sophie like the sister she had always been, pulling her into their games, sitting with her at lunch, fiercely defending her when other kids asked thoughtless questions. She's our sister, Noah told a classmate who repeated gossip from home. And if you're mean to her, you're mean to me. Slowly, day by day, Sophie began to adjust. She started sleeping through the night, stopped asking when she could go home, began laughing at Noah's jokes, started playing dress-up with Ava's sprawling collection of princess costumes. 2 weeks after Sophie moved in, I found her sitting on Ava's bed while Ava carefully brushed her hair. You have the same curls as me, Ava said with 5-year-old pride. That's because we're sisters. Sophie smiled, tentative but real. Real sisters, Ava added with absolute conviction. The realest. Forever sisters. That night, as I tucked Sophie into bed, she said it for the first time. Mom, can I have water? Not Alara. Not Mrs. Winslow. Mom. I brought her the water with shaking hands and set it beside her stuffed rabbit. Good night, Sophie. Good night, Mom. It was such a small moment, just one word, but it felt like the entire world shifted into its rightful place. Despite all the devastation, betrayal, and the slow demolition of the life I thought I had, maybe, somehow, we were going to be okay. The weeks after Sophie called me Mom blurred into a strange rhythm of domestic routine and legal warfare, court hearings followed by school pickup, depositions squeezed between homework help and bedtime stories. My life split into 2 tracks, one dedicated to dismantling everything Callum had built, the other to rebuilding everything he nearly destroyed. For months after the initial custody hearing, Callum accepted a plea deal. Claudia called me on a Tuesday morning while I was packing lunches. He's taking it. 8 years in federal custody. Possibility of parole after 5. Full cooperation. Testimony against business partners. Forfeiture of all assets. When is sentencing? Friday at 2 o'clock. You don't have to go if you don't want to. But I did want to. I needed to. I needed to see this chapter close on the record. That Friday afternoon, I sat in the federal courthouse with Claudia beside me, watching Callum stand before Judge Helena Carrington. He looked thinner. The suit hung loosely on him. His hair had gone gray at the temples in just 4 months. He seemed smaller. His lawyer spoke first, offering a prepared statement about remorse and accountability. Then Callum addressed the court, his voice so quiet it barely reached us. Your Honor, I destroyed my family through selfishness and greed. I violated my wife's trust and autonomy in the most fundamental way. I manipulated my wife, my business partners, Marina, Aldro, everyone, to serve my own interests. I take full responsibility for my actions and accept whatever consequences you impose. Judge Carrington listened, expression unmoved. Mr. Winslow, she said finally, you systematically defrauded partners and clients. You stole from your wife. Most egregiously, you accessed her genetic material without her consent, using medical fraud and bribery to create a child she did not know existed. The violation is so profound that it defies adequate description. She looked at her notes, then back at him. 8 years in federal custody. An additional 5 years supervised release. Full restitution to all victims. And permanent forfeiture of parental rights to all 3 children, Noah, Ava, and Sophie Winslow. Permanent forfeiture. The words echoed like a bell through the courtroom. No forced visitation. No court-mandated holidays. No more pretending. It was over. Callum's shoulders sagged. 2 federal marshals stepped forward. As they led him past my row, he looked at me once, briefly. I met his eyes with no anger, no forgiveness, nothing. He had made his choices. Now he would live with them. 2 weeks after sentencing, Mira asked me to come sit with her in the kitchen after the kids were asleep. She had that nervous, anticipatory energy of someone about to reveal news they weren't sure how you'd take. I need to tell you something, she said, wrapping her hands around a mug of tea she wasn't drinking. I've been seeing someone. It's still new, but getting serious, and I wanted you to hear it from me. I felt a smile forming. That's wonderful, Mira. Why do you look like you expect me to be upset? She exhaled shakily. It's Detective Lena Calder. From your case. We met during one of the interviews about Callum's financial fraud. We started talking, and it just happened. I processed this. The detective who uncovered Callum's crimes was now dating my sister. Somehow, it didn't feel strange. It felt fitting. Are you happy? I asked. Myra's whole face softened. Really happy, June. She's brilliant and kind. She understands what we've been through without needing explanations. She just gets it. Then I'm happy for you. I squeezed her hand. God knows we deserve good news. Myra's relationship with Lena became another unexpected piece of our reconstructed life. Lena was careful about boundaries, never discussing Callum's case or the ongoing investigations, but her presence brought warmth and stability none of us had realized we'd been missing. The kids adored her, especially when she started teaching them basic self-defense in the backyard on weekends. Gentle, kid-friendly moves framed as games, but with real purpose. Everyone should know how to protect themselves, Lena told me one Saturday while Noah practiced blocking techniques and Ava giggled through her attempts to imitate him. I watched them, thinking about how families can form in the most unexpected ways. How trauma and crisis can pull together people who might never have crossed paths otherwise. 6 months after Sophie moved in, Marina and I met for coffee at a small cafe halfway between Cambridge and our neighborhood in the South End. It had become a monthly routine, neutral territory to talk about Sophie's progress, adjust visit schedules, and slowly build something resembling friendship from the ruins Callum left behind. She's thriving, I told Marina, showing pictures on my phone. Her teacher says she's caught up academically, she's making friends. The therapy is helping her so much. Marina smiled, but there was sadness behind it. Thank you for including me in her life. I know legally you don't have to. You raised her for 6 years, I said gently. You loved her when I didn't even know she existed. That matters. It will always matter. And I meant it. Marina and I had both been victims of Callum's calculated manipulation. She deserved compassion, not punishment. We had worked out an arrangement Dr. Han helped us create. Marina saw Sophie twice a month during supervised visits. She came to birthday parties, school programs, playdates. It was unconventional, certainly not the kind of arrangement most family courts would recommend, but it worked for us. Sophie called her Auntie Nessa. I knew that title must have hurt sometimes, a demotion from mother to aunt, but Marina never complained or pushed for anything beyond what we had agreed to. I'm seeing a therapist too, Marina mentioned one afternoon while stirring sugar into her coffee. Working through the guilt, the betrayal. It helps, talking to someone who understands how completely I was manipulated. I'm glad, I told her. You deserve support just as much as I do. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the steady flow of people through the cafe, young couples, parents with toddlers, professionals grabbing lattes between meetings. Life, in all its ordinary forms, moved around us. Then Marina asked suddenly, have you thought about dating? Starting over. I laughed. 3 kids and a demanding career? When exactly would I have the time? But privately, yes, I had wondered. Late at night, in the quiet, I had thought about what it might mean to trust someone again. To let someone in who hadn't been part of this disaster. Maybe someday, I admitted. Right now, I'm focused on stability. On the kids. On making sure Sophie feels secure. You're doing an amazing job, Marina said gently. Really? Sophie talks about you all the time, about her brother and sister, about the house, about feeling like she belongs. Whatever you're doing, it's working. Exactly 1 year after Noah asked that innocent breakfast table question, I stood in our brownstone living room watching my 3 children play together. November light slanted through the bay windows, warm and golden. Noah was teaching Sophie how to use the controls of his favorite video game, explaining strategy with patient 7-year-old seriousness. Sophie held the controller with intense focus. Ava had built an elaborate stuffed animal kingdom inside a blanket fort that covered half the room. You have to be the dragon, Ava instructed Noah. And Sophie, you're the princess who fights the dragon. Can the princess win? Sophie asked. Obviously, Ava declared with 5-year-old certainty. She's the hero. In the kitchen, I could hear Mira and Lena making dinner together, their conversation soft, full of laughter. The smell of roasted chicken and vegetables drifted through the house. This wasn't the family I had envisioned when I married Callum 10 years ago. It wasn't the picture-perfect world from our old Christmas cards. But it was real, and it was ours. And it was far more honest than anything Callum and I had built. My phone buzzed, a text from a potential new client, a tech CEO facing a harassment scandal that threatened to destroy his company. Life went on. Crisis management went on. And I had learned something vital. Survival isn't about avoiding disaster. It's about controlling what comes after. Noah looked up from the video game. Mom, are you playing or just watching? I'm coming, I said, setting down my phone and climbing into their blanket fort kingdom. Later that night, after the kids were asleep and Mira and Lena retreated upstairs, I sat alone in the quiet living room. The house settled around me with familiar creaks. Outside, Boston hummed in its usual rhythm, cars passing, distant sirens, the city breathing. I allowed myself to face the truth that had started everything a year earlier. My entire life had been built on a foundation of deception. But discovering that had not destroyed me. It had forced me to evolve. Some women discover infidelity through lipstick on a collar or suspicious text messages. I discovered mine through a 7-year-old's comment about his father's park friend. That innocent observation unraveled medical fraud, years of financial deception, and ultimately led me to reclaim a daughter stolen from my DNA. Callum was now in federal prison, facing years of consequences. Marina was rebuilding her life, learning to forgive herself for being manipulated. And I was here, in this brownstone, raising 3 children who shared my genetics, my home, and my future. The truth that once kept me awake at night, the depth of deception, the stolen child, the fraud had transformed into something else entirely. Not revenge, although I would be lying if I said there wasn't satisfaction in watching Callum's empire collapse. Not even justice, though the legal system had delivered more than I ever expected. Reclamation. I had reclaimed my daughter. my autonomy, my future. I had used the skills that once protected Boston's most powerful people to dismantle lies and build something real in their place. I am Alara Winslow. I manage crisis for the elite. But the most important crisis I ever managed was my own. And I didn't just survive it. I turned it into the foundation of a new life. The brownstone was quiet. The children were safe in their beds. Mira and Lena were building something beautiful upstairs. And for the first time in a year, I felt something close to peace, as though simply walking upstairs to my own bedroom was victory enough. If this journey of uncovering the truth kept you hooked from that breakfast moment to the final courtroom reckoning, hit that like button right now. My favorite scene? When Alara confronted Callum over that perfectly prepared salmon dinner, watching his entire facade collapse with every word she spoke. What was your favorite moment? Drop it in the comments below.